Before we get started with today's episode, I got some good feedback last time on my ASMR segment. So if anyone wants personalized ASMR tracks, for a fee, of course, you can go to throwinbonesmma@gmail.com. Send me an email. I'll record whatever you want. Now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Throwin Bones MMA podcast with none other than me, Adam Gerber. All right, so was that fun? I don't know. That was to me, that was a cynical experience, UFC 246. The assassination of Cowboy Cerrone by the coward Conor McGregor. I don't know, I've had a lot of thoughts, I guess, last night and then this morning about the fight, and I've had obviously a lot of thoughts about what this fight was and what it sort of represented beforehand. And I saw a quote from a journalist I respect, Josh Gross, one of the best, I think, in the game. And he described the feeling of this fight not as a big McGregor fight, and I agree, because I don't think it ever reached that sort of fevered pitch that a McGregor fight week reaches. It was a very relaxed, very laid back, very under the radar McGregor fight week, mixed with, when the fight actually got there, the tension wasn't palpable to me. It wasn't like a knife could cut through the air. It wasn't like I described to my friends in the bar we were talking. I said, usually when you breathe in, it's like harder to breathe. You can feel the tension in the air when it's about to happen. And to me, it's like and I'll get into this a little bit later, but it usually feels like this huge, unconquerable hill that he's climbing. It's this crazy challenge that he's taking on, and he takes it on with such grace and poise that it's admirable. It's where he gets his star quality from, right? It's what ultimately what gets people behind him is in this incredible storm of chaos that he creates for himself that wasn't really there this time. He remains the eye of the storm and in control. And he was very in control this time, but it wasn't like the bated breath wasn't there. And I think it's that conquerability and that feeling of him climbing a mountain. And obviously you can't just keep climbing mountains because you can't just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That was part of his problem in the first place. But to me, and this perfectly encapsulates it, to me, Josh Gross said, this doesn't feel like a big McGregor fight. This feels like a business transaction. And I totally agree. It felt like a business transaction. It very much felt like a boxing thing. Like, this is very much, we're boxing now. We boxing now, boys. That's what it is. Because this was such a transparent squash match, and I've seen people saying that, and people will go off on other people for calling or accusing Cerrone of fixing a fight. I don't think Cerrone fixed a fight at all. Implicitly, absolutely not. But we all know who Cerrone is. And going into this fight, he said, I'm going to stand and bang and test it out, because that's who he is, and that's what we love him for, and he fights so often, and that's what we love him for, and that's what he's made his name off of. So in a sense, his behavior is predictable. Right? So you can schedule a fight knowing what's going to happen, especially if you know how Cowboy operates and what he's going to do. That doesn't necessarily mean Cowboy was in on it. He's just being who he is. But being who he is led exactly to, what happened. And what it was a boxing tune-up fight. And in the end, I think I don't have the feeling of amazement or awe that I usually associate with the morning or the week after a McGregor fight, because that's what was supposed to happen. Usually he conquers some indomitable odds, and it's not the way it's supposed to go, and you just can't believe it's real. But the way this went was so unapologetically exactly what was supposed to happen the second this fight was even considered, that it's a little bit, it's leaving a cynical taste in my mouth. And it's like, The shoulder strikes, were they amazing? Yes, they absolutely were. But are we going to act like Cerrone's nose was fully healed after the Tony Ferguson fight? Are we going to act like he let that get back to the completely the way it should have been? Like Mike Perry against Jeff Neal. Like, even if Jeff Neal hadn't have knocked him out that early, he had still been 3 months removed from a crazy war and was supposed to take 9 months off for his nose. Speaking of which, and this has been harped on, but Cowboy did just get knocked out 3 to 4 months ago in the first round by Gaethje. And so it's sort of like, everyone's like, McGregor's back. Oh my God, flawless. I can't believe he did that. And all this amazement and astonishment and press, like, saying that, like, that's a definitive proof that he's back. I don't get it. I genuinely don't. I don't get the connection, because to me, like, that's not what McGregor is. He came back and showed that he's still got skills, right? But he came back to a favorable matchup. To me, this doesn't prove anything. All this was like, okay, now we're ready to start again. And I don't know. I'm not leaving with the same amazement. There's no feeling of, like, after when the fight ended that quickly with Aldo, you're left going, wow, I can't believe he did that. But now he's leaving this fight with Cowboy, and you just go, yep. I tried to sort of fool myself into thinking Cowboy was going to do better than that. Like, I thought he was going to land a strike. I guess it's impressive that he didn't land a strike. But, Gaethje and Ferguson loosened the lid, and now McGregor's getting all the credit for opening the pickle jar. And it's just dishonest, And the UFC is supposed to be as real as it gets, and this is, like, as close to sort of backroom dealings and puppet mastery with fight making that I've seen them go through. And so that was sad for me. I think that's why I wasn't able to get the enjoyment out of this that I did, because usually when they do this sort of stuff, there's a reasonable expectation that, oh my God, it'll be great. Like when Amanda Nunes beat Rousey, it'll be great when this upset happens and their narrative is crumbled. It's like one of the greatest moments in sports when that sort of thing happens. And, things are truly fair. But this just reeked of injustice to me. And I know Cowboy's up there and he's a top-level fighter, and this might sound disrespectful, but what it really is that McGregor's one of the best fighters in the world. He really is. And I guess you can say, well, if he's on and we didn't know if he was going to be on, well, we're going to find that we still don't know. Because we know that Cowboy's not that level. So either way, whether it was, right now or the next fight, we're going to find out in the next fight, and it's going to be because of the opponents that he faces, which I think it's got to be either Masvidal or Gaethje at this point. There's nowhere else to go. If he does the trilogy with Diaz, we're going to really see where his head's at, for sure. That would be really disappointing. I'm ready to get excited for his next fight now, but that's why this fight just seemed like a waste of time, because I would have gotten excited if this one would have seemed like a challenge in the first place, which, I mean, no disrespect to Cerrone, but he really seemed like he was picked as the patsy for this fight, and he sort of played into that role in fight week. Like, you're really not even going to consider shooting a takedown. He might have been just sort of talking mess or whatever. I think he did end up shooting one, and then McGregor stuffed it immediately. And I think he had a good point that a lot of people were overlooking. It's like, if you think he hasn't developed a ground game and an anti-wrestling game over the past 7 years or whatever, 5 years since we talked, like, you're not paying attention. Like, get a real life. Like, if you think he's really just striking, like, you're an idiot. And yeah, he stuffed a takedown perfectly on Cerrone ducking a pretty committed left hand. So I just didn't get anything from the fight, and that's the feeling I got, is that I was never get anything. I never got anything. I was never gonna get anything, but I meant to have this sort of revelation, like, he's back. But I don't feel that yet. If he goes in there and does Masvidal the same way, oh boy, then he's back. But these feelings, I don't know. You just want these top level fighters challenged. There's a reason you don't want to watch, Jose Aldo, drop down and take on Andre Fili. It's just, there's no reason. Like, even that's like, I don't know. I don't know what to feel. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel after this fight, I suppose. And I guess that's part of the problem is I don't just get to decide how I feel. I need to sort of sort out what I feel with this, obviously what I was manufactured to feel by making this fight. It's just the way they grab Cerrone with such like the highest name value for the littlest challenge is just so disingenuous to me. It's gross. It's so boxing. All right, we're going to move on and talk about the rest of the card, which was, I mean, yeah. And then we'll move on. We'll talk about the upcoming Curtis Blades versus Junior Dos Santos card, which actually looks really good. I'm excited for that matchup. That'll be a good fight. So, at least a good heavyweight fight, at least. Unlike the one we had this weekend. Oh, gosh. All right. All right. Let's take a look at the other fights. Should we start with Holm versus Pennington? Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, that was wall install. That was the whole fight. Holm just wall installed her against the fence, held position. And Pennington just sort of let her. And then Pennington, even though she was doing all right boxing, every time she had the chance, she would engage the clinch, even though she'd lose the clinch for every second of it. Yeah, that fight just sucked. Yeah. The perfect mix of bad fight IQ and boring strategy. So I guess we'll see Holly Holm in one more title fight before she retires. Jesus. What's next? More Alexei Oleinik versus Maurice Green. Definitely saw this one coming. I mean, yeah, just once you're on the ground with this guy, you're done. And I don't know. I just don't know what to say about these fights because it's like, of course, Maurice Green got submitted by Alexei Oleinik. Maurice Green. I just don't know what to say. Like, these were such weird frickin' fights. Ode Osborne versus Brian Kelleher I thought would be pretty close, and it was on the feet, and then Brian Kelleher snatched up a submission, which was nasty and excellent. I guess I will say Crochetbot, he looked incredibly disappointed in himself at the end of that fight. And I guess that's one of the reasons I don't know what to say, just because, like, yeah, well, you got submitted by the guy who submits everybody, even though he's like 54. He was like hitting his head on the canvas, and is what it is. This was a depressing night of fights, you guys. Brian Kelleher won by submission. That was actually really cool. Ode Osborne looked like he was about to lay a licking on him on the feet, and then Kelleher snatched that on, I think it was, I don't know, I was a bit drunk for these at the bar. These are not going to be my usual in-depth breakdowns. Ode, was he shooting a takedown? Either way, Kelleher got the guillotine. Is that like just to stay in the UFC? Because I know Kelleher's had a rough go of it lately. So that was maybe a career saver. They were maybe giving the guy with a bit of recognition to someone coming off the Contender Series. Anthony Pettis lost to a guy. Just a guy. No, but really, I've just been calling him a guy, but Diego Ferreira is a legit fighter. I picked him to win over Pettis. His jiu-jitsu's nasty. He's had a long road to the top. It's difficult to say where he's going to get now just because of his age, but I'm glad there's starting to be a little bit of turnover, just not based on name value. But again, just a bizarre matchup. I mean, you'd think Kevin Lee or Gillespie or, you know, just any of those guys coming up at lightweight. But I guess Ferreira is one of them, even if he's been doing it quietly. It's just sort of crazy to go from like Taisumov, and I can't even remember what his last fight was. Usually there's a bit of an in-between, but this was a jump right into the rankings, and good for him for showing out. I don't know, Anthony Pettis is at a point where I feel like, same as Cowboy, Anthony Pettis and Cowboy should probably retire. Pettis should only, if Pettis is fighting, he should only be fighting at 170. He looked great at 170. Apparently, he's suing USADA right now because one of their sample collection cups cut his hand right before the Diaz fight. So the Diaz loss to me was not really an indication of him having to move down because he would have lost that fight at lightweight anyway. So I don't know. Stay where you're comfortable, man. Like the weight class is not it. He looked horrible on the scales. He looked horrible at weigh-ins. He looked like his little brother. Maybe that's his plan. Maybe now that Sergio has been traded to Bellator, maybe he's like, I'm going to rule the flyweight division. Me, Anthony Pettis, I will cut down and I will be the flyweight king. Okay. And then Claudia Gadelha versus Alexa Grasso got canceled, which made me super sad. Alexa Grasso is now going to move up to 125. I think that's a good idea, considering she's gotten thicker than a Snicker lately. She's jacked and her shoulders are huge. She's really, I think you just go through those, parts of your life where you kind of go out of adolescence, just before you reach 30, your body really hits its physical peak, and I think hers did, and I think it's going to have to move her up a weight class. She missed by like 6 pounds. I'm still waiting for that to happen to me, by the way, just to get all of a sudden, maybe when I'm 26, I'll just get jacked all of a sudden. And too bad for Claudia Gadelha, because this was a high-profile card, a lot of eyes. They could have been the stars of the show, honestly, with the way the rest of the fights went. And she kind of missed out on that for no reason at all, because, she didn't miss weight. I think hopefully she got paid. What else was there? Sadiq Youssef versus Andre Fili wasn't exactly the banger that I thought it would be or hoped it would be. Sadiq Youssef, when he's putting the pace on people, when he's controlling the pace, and even like his jab, he doesn't need to plant it or step into it that much. He's fast enough, and he's just got natural power that when he does sit down, he rocks you, but he doesn't need to sit down on them to really land. And just really controlled the pace and controlled where Fili was willing to go and what he was willing to throw in the first 2 rounds, and then just completely stopped. Went back to the Youssef that I knew, that I predicted the whole fight would go as, and he just backed straight up to the cage, Tyron Woodley style, and was waiting for that one big perfect shot, and Fili started to find his range, started to touch him up a bit, feel him out with his jab, and he started picking him apart from the southpaw position. And that's what I was expecting more of the fight to look like. I think if that went 5 rounds, I think Fili would have taken it. But good showing from Sadiq Youssef. If he can keep that aggression, I think that there's very little anyone can do to take advantage of his pace and his power. But when he sits back, you've seen it with Tyron Woodley, when you sit back and give the other person the front foot, and you're so concerned with hitting him with that perfect shot, sometimes it doesn't come, and sometimes, they're prepared to roll with it. Sometimes it doesn't knock them out, and sometimes they just get your number and start picking you apart. It really looked like, the 3rd round of that fight really looked like Rory McDonald versus Tyron Woodley, to me, at least, having him against the cage and just pinning him there. Roxanne, I got to eat crow for this one, because Roxanne's still hanging on. Modafferi beat the tar out of Macy Barber after dislocated, or something happened with her knee. They had to check on it. I may have missed a little bit of this one going to the bar, but I'm glad at least one of these setup matches didn't go the way they wanted it to. Modafferi still showing that she's a legit grappler, and she can cut you up and damage you on the ground, even if she looks like a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man when she's on the feet. Tim Elliott had a scrap with Askar Askarov. I didn't really notice it, but watching this, I was like, oh, this is like Tony Ferguson versus Khabib light, a little bit. We got the funky grappling from Tim Elliott. We had the orthodox crushing top pressure from Askar Askarov. And I think Askarov's going to go really far in this division, without a doubt. I can see him challenging for a title next year. I was going to say within the year, but flyweights, unless he finishes a couple fights really early, usually they have a full 15 and they need a little bit longer in between fights. So I'd say next year, I think he'd be challenging for a title. His top pressure so good. His striking's getting tighter and tighter. I noticed when he came into the UFC that it was his offense is very good. He's very aggressive. He's very good on the front foot. But he leaves himself open a lot. He leaves openings while he's throwing to be countered, and also after he throws, he doesn't do a good job of getting back out of range. So I noticed he's been tightening that up a little bit. His punches are a little bit straighter, a little bit less loopy. Interested to see how Askar Askarov develops. I think he's probably one of the most interesting prospects. Definitely at 125, but I would say below 145. And then Drew Dober knocked out Nasrat Haqparast. That was unexpected, but I'm very happy that Drew Dober finally got one that went his way. For a while now, it's been Drew Dober winning the fight until he makes one dumb decision and then he loses. So it's never been a question of physical attributes or even individual techniques. It's just been moments, lapses of judgment and in fight IQ that's really held Dober back. So usually that means at some point they're going to put it all together mentally and things are just going to fly. And I can absolutely see Dober doing that with his state trooper haircut. It was great to see. I'm a huge Dober fan. That fight with Frank Camacho is one of my favorites. And then we've got a couple fights on the early prelims. Sabina Mazo punched JJ Aldridge in the forehead for a split decision. Aldridge came out and she looked completely in control. She was setting the pace. She was switching stances. She was, jabbing into a single collar, switching stances, and then hitting her with an overhand. It was just great. She was hitting her with check hooks. It was great stuff. And then at some point, Sabina Mazo locked her up in a tie clinch and just started raining in knees. And I think one of them really caught Aldrich, and the body work just added up until at the end of the fight, Mazo had her against the fence, exhausted, and just wouldn't attack her. And I thought she was going to lose the fight for it, and she almost did. But she won the split decision, so I don't know. Women's flyweight's getting really interesting, much faster than I thought it would. So I'm interested to see Sabina Mazo go up. Maybe have her fight Macy Barber. Alexa Kemur beat Justin Ledet, and that was also fine. That's all I got. This was really... I really hope that this card is not a premonition of the rest of the year, how the rest of the year is going to go, because was not awesome. I definitely hope it's not a predictor of the decade either, but it's not a good start to the year. Even if it's a McGregor card and it made tons of money and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I'm going to leave that. I'll leave it with that. I'll leave it with that Josh Gross quote. It felt more like a business transaction than a big fight. And not even like a business transaction you're excited about, where you're going to get a jet ski or something like you're really going to enjoy. It was more like a business transaction where it's just some bullshit that you had to buy, but you don't really want to. But it's like, fuck, I guess I got to get insurance or some shit. Yeah. And that's my takeaway from 246. We're boxing now. Especially now that we're doing Adesanya versus Romero, even though Romero's coming off a loss. I get that Costa is injured, so he can't challenge for the title. I guess this is the most legitimate one out of all of them, out of all of the number one bullshits. But come on, you've got a murderer's row at middleweight, and you just had Robert Whittaker pull out, and you just had Darren Till pull out. So you've got room for Cannonier. You've got room for Hermanson. You've got, I don't know. I guess this is the one last title shot for Romero. It's sort of like before the levee breaks and the new wave of contenders can come in at middleweight for Adesanya to pick off. Not saying that Adesanya is absolutely going to win against Romero. I think that's probably one of his toughest matchups. I think the durability of Romero and the wrestling ability is going to be something that gives Adesanya fits. And even though he picked apart Robert the way he did, I've always thought that even if he beats Robert, I think Romero is going to be his toughest stylistic matchup in the division. So I'm stoked for that fight. Even though that's like a why are we doing this fight, it's still stylistically extremely compelling. But if you go through the list of like how is this McGregor Cerrone fight compelling, it just wasn't. Storyline, it wasn't. Place in the division, it wasn't. How does this move things forward? It doesn't. Stylistic comparison, no, not really. What was the point? Why'd we do that? I still don't know. And so don't really have a lot to say about it. And then what was the other one? Oh, they're trying to make Aldo versus Cejudo at 135, even though Aldo's never won a fight at 135. And there's two great contenders in Jan and Sterling waiting for a title shot. That is so annoying. And it's so boxing. And the whole reason I was into boxing first, and then I saw how the UFC and MMA did stuff not even business-wise, but making fights, and how it's about making it a legitimate meritocracy that's also caters to fan entertainment. But now we're just throwing the merit, like, that's just bullshit. That's ridiculous, having all that, and the average casual fan that, like, knows McGregor and knows Cerrone and knows Khabib doesn't know Aldo. So you're not generating any more pay-per-view buys by doing this. In that division, Cejudo's the money fight. He's the guy that beat TJ. He's the guy that... I know people who are casuals who know Cejudo. They don't know Aldo. They don't. So Cejudo saying he wants the money fight. You are the money fight in that division. Fight the contenders. That's it. And so not only have you just completely, after you're gonna save the flyweights, you did, congratulations, but now there's gonna be a title fight without you because you just pissed off of that division, and now you're gonna completely, like, what are you doing to this one? For someone who's an Olympic gold medal athlete, you'd think the sanctity of competition would mean a little bit more to him, but absolutely not. And so what are you throwing that away for? A payday that doesn't even exist. That's not a money fight. I don't know. All right, let's talk about this upcoming card in Raleigh. Is that what it is? I don't know. We'll check, and then we'll be back. All right. UFC on ESPN Plus 24, also known as UFC Fight Night Raleigh, North Carolina, United States. That was my dog on my lap sneezing. I felt like I was doing an old-timey announcer there. Oh, I should do live streams where I do old-timey announcers for the fights. And now McGregor's had him in the clinch. He started hitting him with his left shoulder. Oh, they've separated. McGregor's grabbing his shorts. Now he's kicked him in the head. Oh, down goes Cowboy. He's crumpled up like a used carton of cigarettes. McGregor's raining down left hands. Left, right. McGregor has crumpled him. He's down. Herb Dean steps in. The fight is over. Anyway, from Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay, I'll stop. Okay, I will stop. Curtis Blaydes versus Junior Dos Santos. Incredibly compelling matchup. You got Dos Santos coming back after his knockout loss to Ngannou, and then, well, both of these guys trying to come back from their knockout losses to Ngannou. And then he had a debilitating leg infection that he thought might end his career. So I'm glad he's back from that, because if Junior Dos Santos isn't one of your favorite fighters, what are you even doing? And then what has Curtis Blaydes done? Curtis Blaydes had lost to Ngannou after a hell of a streak. Has only lost to Ngannou twice. First, he lost to Ngannou, and then he went on a 5-fight win streak, and then he lost the second time, and then he beat Justin Big Titty Go Home Willis, and then Shabil Abdurakhimov. And now he's fighting Junior. I think it's tough to say with Ngannou, because Ngannou seems to be his kryptonite at this point, even though that second fight was an early stoppage, and he just got clipped, but anyone can just get clipped against Ngannou. Junior, on the other hand, since he lost to Ngannou, hasn't had any fights. Had a canceled bout with Volkov because of his leg infection. So this is his comeback fight from Ngannou. And I think Blaydes is going to absolutely wrestle his pants off. That's what I think. I think Blaydes is a future champ unless he can't get past that kryptonite Ngannou. But as soon as his striking comes up to any sort of par with his grappling ability, not only his control in wrestling and his ability to tire his opponents, but his ability to do damage with ground and pound, even just short little shots and to generate power, is unbelievable. The way he opened Alistair Overeem's head like a tomato can, that was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen. And it was almost lackadaisical and so sudden after just a monotonous, just wrestling him, tiring him out, and then all of a sudden just wham, 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 and he was just pouring like a fountain of blood. I think Curtis Blades gets maybe a little bit underrated just because of those losses to Ngannou. But there are very few people I'd pick at just with Blades' durability and his wrestling ability and his gas tank, and he's in better shape than almost any other heavyweight. There are very few heavyweights I'd pick over him. Maybe Miocic, maybe Ngannou again. It's too bad that Cormier got so tied up with the Miocic trilogy. I would have loved to see Curtis Blades and Daniel Cormier fight. But yeah, I'm going to go with Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades maybe by like TKO in the 4th or something like that. Like that or decision. We've got RDA, Rafael dos Anjos versus Michael Chiesa. Don't talk about my mom, Chiesa. And this is Michael Chiesa's first real move up in competition at welterweight. I believe he came in and he fought, was Diego Sanchez's first? No, he fought Carlos Condit at welterweight. Yeah, he fought Carlos Condit at welterweight, and then he fought Diego Sanchez at welterweight after losing to Anthony Pettis, I think, at lightweight. Yeah, lost Anthony Pettis at lightweight, and then he moved up to welterweight, fought Carlos Condit, and fought Diego Sanchez. So he's fighting another old name, Rafael dos Anjos, which is a huge step up in competition from Sanchez to RDA. That's unbelievable. And I don't think Chiesa would have beat RDA at lightweight, and I don't think he's going to beat him at welterweight. I think RDA's got too many tools. I see RDA kicking the crap out of Chiesa's legs, and I don't think Chiesa's going to be able to out-grapple RDA the way that he relies on out-grappling almost everyone that he faces. I feel like this is a really, really tough test for Chiesa. But if he wins, a win over RDA like really shows that you can hang at the top 10, at the top 5 of welterweight. I never really pegged Chiesa as someone who would make it there. I don't think his striking is cohesive enough and put together enough. It's very much just sort of a janky orchestration meant to get you to the ground eventually. And I think you need more than that at welterweight. It's going to be really tough grappling your way to a welterweight title as Michael Chiesa right now. Just with who's in the division, who you're going to have to go through. The Tyron Woodleys, the Leon Edwards, of course, the Covingtons and the Usmans. It's a tough ask for Chiesa. And this is a good challenge for him in RDA, because if you can't get through RDA, you're not going to get through much of the rest of the division. So this is do or die for Chiesa in his new division, as far as I'm concerned. And he maybe could have used a buffer fight in between Diego Sanchez and Rafael dos Anjos. Jordan Espinoza versus Alex Perez at flyweight, and that's going to be a banger, no doubt. Those guys both come to swang every time. Great strikers. Let's see, Espinoza coming off a loss to Matt Schnell by triangle choke, but before that had a decision win over Eric Shelton. And of course, Espinoza came in from a knockout off the Contender Series. Whereas Alex Perez was the guy who got knocked out twice by Benavidez, right? Right? Yeah, Joey 2-time. So since then, he's beat Mark De La Rosa by decision. Am I confusing these guys with someone else? I felt like these guys were very, very huge strikers. Thought maybe he'd even gotten a knockout at some point. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Alex Perez knocked out Shorty Torres. At Dillashaw Garbrandt. Alex Perez has a lot of chokes, actually. I'm gonna go with Perez on this one. I think he's just got more. He's got more in octagon experience to pull off of, being in there. Even if you got knocked out with Benavidez, I think is more valuable than Espinoza, who seems to have just come into the UFC and gotten a couple low level wins by decision. But they're right next to each other in the rankings. For some reason, Espinoza is ranked above Alex Perez. Whatever. I got Alex Perez in this one. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a TKO or a submission, but probably decision. Hannah Cifers versus Angela Hill. Always going to go with my girl Angela Hill. Her striking's been looking better and better. She's one of those fighters that continuously improves and is also always game to fight. So definitely clouded judgment on this. I didn't even I'm not even thinking about Hannah Cifers. I'm just a big fan of Angela Hill, so I'm gonna root for her. If I had to bet though, I don't know. Let's see what's Hannah Cifers got. Did she get TKO'd in her last fight? No, she got TKO'd against Macy Barber, and then she's fought Polyana Viana and Jodie Esquibel. Yeah, I think she's gonna lose this fight. I think Hannah Cifers going to lose, even though, she's got a tough story of anxiety and mental health. It's easy for anyone to get behind. Yeah, they both won unanimous against Jodie Esquibel. I don't know. This should just be a good scrap. This doesn't mean a whole lot for the rest of the division, I don't think, at this point. Jamahal Hill, no idea who that is. I'm gonna guess he's coming off the Contender Series. Yep, he is. Versus Darko Stosic, who is the protege of, what can I think of the name? Krokop. And he had that fight with Kennedy Njeku there, which was one of the most bizarre fights of 2019, where he just kicked Kennedy Njeku in the nuts like 3 or 4 times, and then they just sort of stared at each other for the rest of the fight. Too timid. He didn't want to kick the guy in the nuts. The other guy didn't want to get kicked in the nuts. Arnold Allen versus Nick Lentz. Of course, cheering for Arnold Allen here, but Nick Lentz has been doing a lot better lately. Arnold Allen's Tapology photo. He looks juiced to the gills. And Arnold Allen's coming off his win over Gilbert Melendez. Wow, he's had a lot of canceled bouts in the past. In the past 2 years, Arnold Allen has had 1, 2, 3, 4 canceled bouts. And only 3 actual fights. 4 fights. Wow. When are they going to get Mads Burnell back in the UFC? Every time I look at that, I'm sad. He's a great fighter. Okay. I digress. Arnold Allen's probably going to beat Nick Lentz. He's too complete everywhere. He's one of those British fighters who's very technically sound in a lot of areas of the striking, but he also, I don't know where, but he got the wrestling and the grappling pedigree. I don't think Nick Lentz is going to catch him in a guillotine, which is kind of the way Nick Lentz wins fights. Who did Nick Lentz beat last? He's had a weird run, the Carney. Oh, he lost to Charles Oliveira. Okay. Oh yeah, he got knocked out by Charles Oliveira. He had a great fight with Scott Holtzman, but he won that, which made me sad. And then he beat the corpse of Gray Maynard. Okay. Yeah, Arnold Allen's got this one for sure. Probably going to decision him, though, because that's how Arnold Allen do. Just kind of technically shut him down and then coast to a decision. That's a very Arnold Allen victory. We've got Justine Kish, the girl who crapped herself in the cage, smeared a poop everywhere, versus Lucy Pudilova. Lucy Pudilova is... I'm a big fan of her and the violence that she brings, and Justine Kish has got a lot of heart, and she can take a shit kicking. Hey! That'll be a fun fight. See, these are all fun fights. Even if they're lower. This is such a more exciting fight card than the 246, as far as I'm concerned, because these are actually compelling fights. So many of them, and I get them. Even if they're lower level, they make so much sense division-wise. And like Lena Landsberg versus Sarah McMahon. That's a great fight. That's maybe not a great fight, but that's great matchmaking, especially for Lena Landsberg, who's kind of coming back and getting her a bit of a career resurgence. I'm definitely excited to see that. She's been bringing the violence. She's another one like Alexa Grasso. All of a sudden, she's just jacked, like in great shape. Like you can tell something is just absolutely clicked and changed for her, and she's coming in. The way she's putting the torque into her shots, she is the elbow queen again. Pretty sure she won her last fight by TKO with elbows. What, didn't she? Oh no, a decision against Macy Chiasson, who's a dangerous fighter. Macy Chiasson is so dangerous, and the way she neutralized her was so impressive. Who'd she crack with the... Maybe it was Tanya she cracked with the elbows, but no, she hadn't won by TKO with elbows. I'm making that up. Can she stave off the grappling of Sarah McMahon? No idea. Absolutely no idea. McMahon's wrestling is absolutely relentless. McMahon's kind of coming back, though, off a hiatus. I'm pretty sure she had a kid. She had a baby, didn't she? Yeah, she had a baby. Yeah, and she's been having a lot of grappling bouts. So her last MMA fight was against Marion Renault in 2018, and she lost by triangle choke. And then she competed in quintet, just grappling. Yeah, so she went and had a baby. So this is going to be her comeback fight. I think Lena Landsberg might put a whooping on her. I mean, she's obviously still been grappling. She's been doing quintet. So her grappling will be sharp. It'll really just be a can Lena tire her out enough that she can't just land takedowns at will? Because Sarah McMahon's double leg is fantastic. Yeah, I feel like McMahon might win that one by decision. I feel like Landsberg's wrestling just isn't there. She'll have to catch her early and really set the pace and maybe stuff a couple takedowns. And I don't know if I see her stuffing like really powerful takedowns. Cage work, she's excellent, but Sarah McMahon really likes open space takedowns, and that's not Landsberg's jam. She likes a wall to work on. So that's a pretty compelling fight, actually. I'd say probably McMahon by decision, but I'm rooting for Landsberg. Bevon Lewis versus Daquan Townsend. That'll fight will just be an absolute banger. And it's happened at 185. Daquan Townsend I thought he had some not legal issues, but I thought I heard he tested positive for something in USADA. Yes, he had that amazing fight versus Dalsha Langiambula. Yeah, that's just a great. That's just going to be great violence. And Bevon Lewis has an abnormally shaped head. It's like an upside down pear. Makes a really easy target, and he'll probably go in and just put on a technical masterclass until he just gets knocked out, because that's what Bevon Lewis do. That's a good fight. Okay. And then we got Brett Johns versus someone coming in, the number one bantamweight in the northern U.S. Brett Johns is always a great little scrap technical masterclass. Not masterclass, but I always love seeing the dudes who definitely don't have the body to be a professional athlete work their way up and do what they can do purely through their dedication to the techniques and their fight IQ and their intellect. And Brett Johns is one of those guys. Definitely love watching him fight. All right, so that's the upcoming card. It's a great card. I'm more excited for UFC Raleigh, North Carolina than I was for UFC 246, just because it makes more sense. And I'm still confused about UFC 246 and how I'm supposed to feel about it. Yeah, that's all. If you want to share us around, that'd be great. I'm going to be diversifying this podcast a little bit soon. That just means I'm going to be making sure it's on Spotify and iTunes and all that, so it's easier to listen to. If you want to share around our YouTube link, that'll be super cool. I have a story I wrote. It's getting published in Freefall magazine soon. When that comes out, I'll include some instructions on how you can go buy that there and support me if you want to buy some written stuff that I've worked on. It's also one of the best literary magazines in Canada. If you're into poetry, creative nonfiction, fiction, anything like that, it's like $12, and it's really good work, and it's stuff that deserves to be supported. So I'll keep you guys up to date when that comes out and when you can support me and the institution that supported me. So yeah, very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. And also right now, while we're shouting other people who have given me a hand over the years, if you want to go follow Brett Forte on social media and on YouTube, he does the roast battles that I'm welcome at sometimes. On his YouTube, there's a video of me roasting a professional comedian. I think it's called Audience Member Roast Professional Comedian. It's one of the ones that I win. So any of this other stuff that I do, if you want to support it, I'd be eternally grateful. It's what makes, my world go round. But most of all, just keep supporting this podcast. I appreciate anyone who's still here after that hiatus we took since November. I want to apologize for that again. And I want all you boners to know that I'm back for you. You throwing boners. And I appreciate you for listening to me at all, let alone all of this. So... Oh, and there you go. Now the dog started barking, so that's the end of the episode.